Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here on the 24th edition of Solution Illuminators Series podcast. I'm excited to be here with my estimable guest, very insightful, to talk about our new book, Win. My guest is Irma Parone. Irma Parone is a consultant, speaker, award-winning author, and also the president of Parone Group. Please help me welcome my guest, Irma Parone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Good, excited to be
Honored
here.
to be here. I appreciate you calling me.
Good, thank you so much. We're here to talk about problem solving. That is going to be coming from your book, Win. All right. The first thing that came to my mind when I think about problem solving is the fact that I went to school, high school, college, and nobody discussed problem solving. I do not remember taking a class that has to do with problem solving. That's a big thing. What would you recommend about this? And in your time, was it the same thing? Did you learn
It,
about problem solving?
it was the same thing. And so we wonder why people struggle with making decisions and solving problems. And I don't know why, but I just know that I think it's important for businesses, for families, for people to learn a better problem solving model than just to think about what's in it for me, because then you lose in the long run.
Yeah, good. So problem solving is very important. And since the schools and colleges are not doing the work, you are doing the work by
I
writing
am.
a book like this, so we can learn from it and discuss around it. That's why we're here today, to learn about problem solving. Generally, we know that when people make a decision, it's all about emotions. And in your book, you talk about how it's very important to see beyond the emotions that we have when we make a decision. And you mention the Winix method of making decision. What is this about?
So it was interesting that I found out as I was researching the motto I had, the why behind why we make decisions is what I didn't have. And I mean, it's scientific. It was so amazing how much we use emotions to make decisions. That's why having a good, clean process to help people go through data, backgrounds, and looking at a variety of things will help them make a better decision for work, for home. My book is mainly about work,
Well, excellent.
right?
So in the book, because I read the book, Win, right? I read the book, very interesting. The style of writing, excellent. I must give it to you about engaging with good English, with humor. A couple of times in the book, I really enjoyed the book. One of the things that you stated from the beginning is the problem statement.
Yes.
What is that, and how can somebody make sure they have a good problem statement?
Well, the problem with the problem statement is most people think they know what problem they're solving. Very often they don't. And I'll give you an example. Because I work in the strategic leadership performance excellence space, I might get calls from clients or other people and say, I think I'm hiring wrong. What am I doing wrong? And when I have conversations, when I look at the data, when I interview some of the people that didn't do well or left, I found out they were pretty good hires. I mean, some of them were really bad, but most of them were pretty good. The problem wasn't how they were hiring, it was what they were doing with them once they hired them.
Good.
So think about it. Think about the years and the money that was spent by these organizations on the wrong problem, which means you'll never get to a solution. So the problem statement, making it clear,
Mhm.
being absolutely confident that you are working on the right problem is really what we need to start with. That's number one.
Wow, excellent. The right problem, not the wrong one. You just said people get hired and it feels like they are the wrong fit. But I also know of a common statement that people don't leave the job, they leave the bad boss.
That's very true.
Do you, my question is, my first question is, do you believe in that? And also, with using the Winix method, how can you support the bosses and the manager if this is true?
Well, there's two reasons for leaving. One is that you've been terminated, and the other one is that you quit, right?
Yes.
And the reason people leave their boss is because to them, their boss is the company, right? If I work for Federal Express, who is Federal Express to me? It's the person I work for. So if my boss isn't the kind of boss that wants to make sure that I'm clear on my job duties, that I'm taken care of, that I'm cared about, that I'm held to high standards, but also help to get there, then it's not going to be a good situation for any of it. So what the book does, what the 8-step problem solving model does, is it helps you work through what is the problem, how do you know that's the problem, what's the root cause, and then start breaking things down on different problem solving methods so that you could come up with a solution that's a winning solution.
Excellent. One of the areas that I also enjoy is the fact that problem solving means generating ideas. You can
Right.
actually use Winix method to generate ideas. You talked about using that method or different methods to join isolated ideas together, because when we work, we have ideas. Sometimes we have to write it down, and the question is, what's the usefulness of these ideas that comes to our head? Are they useless? Some people have been able to put those ideas together to become so successful in what they do, and others are just felt that these ideas are just random thoughts that are not useful. So using the knowledge that you have, how would you encourage somebody to say, well, those ideas that are coming in pieces can actually be useful? How can you put those ideas together to make something useful for yourself and also for the people?
Right. So, good question. A lot of people have ideas, but they never do anything with them. Right. And a lot of that is because of fear. It's an emotion. Right. What if I put this idea in place and it's the wrong idea? What if the worst thing happens with this idea? So they just don't do anything. And that's a no decision, which is a decision.
Yes.
So in the model, in step 3, I write evaluate the impact of the current situation. So there's, downloadable forms that you could reuse and actually fill in the forms, and you will write, if I leave it alone, what's the impact to the customer? What's the impact to the other employees? And what's the impact to the company? And that way you could see if it's something worth working on. And then as far as ideas, a lot of this book has you look at different options, different people, talk to different people, talk to your employees, talk to the other leaders, talk to different industries, look and see how this problem has been solved before. Make sure you're working on the root cause. I think people would implement more if they felt confident that the solution was going to fix the problem. And so that gets back to fear, and it also gets back to evaluation. So first we evaluated how the current issue is impacting the customers, employees, and company. And then if you come up with 2 or 3 ideas, you lay them out as well. How is each one of these ideas helpful to the customer, to the employees, to the company? And if you put it in the form, there's something about putting it in the form, the right answer comes up.
Wow.
It really helps you look at it without emotion, because you could see how it impacts all these parties. And then you could see which one is the best solution.
Wow. Excellent. I can also give you some props again in your book that the simplicity of the communication was really good. Saying that, well, when business, it goes down to the customers, the employees, and the company. That's what you're thinking about. Any other thing is not important.
Right.
Still talking about generating ideas, one of the methods you mentioned in the book is the 653 method, which I've never heard before until I read your book. What is that about, and what effect can that have?
Well, it's just a way to bring up other ideas. So if you break your team up into 6 people, give them each 5 minutes, and tell them you want 3 ideas in 5 minutes. It's a way of brainstorming and getting ideas out. And then, so you go to each of those groups, and all of a sudden you have a lot of ideas. You'll see which ones have more of the same ideas, like, 10 of the groups pick this idea. It's just a way to bring out more ideas and see how it flushes against the whole group.
Good. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. And also, I think you also mentioned during that process that one of the individuals in the cycle can also modify the previous person's idea, such that as you keep going around, you're generating more ideas, but you can also modify the idea of the other person, because maybe they left something out. They're not seeing something because of bias.
Yes, that's when you get into brainstorming that idea, and you tell people, take that idea and make it better, or change it, or make it fun. I like to have a lot of fun when we do brainstorming. I tell them, just put the craziest ideas. And sometimes when you get a crazy idea and really look at it, you go, wow, we might not be able to do it like this, but what if we did it like that? Right? So you get different viewpoints and people looking at it in a different way.
Wow, excellent. I think this is very good for a company to have team building activities outside of work, take a break from doing the general thing and try to generate new ideas.
Right.
It's something that I really find interesting. But as an alternative to that, you also mentioned brainwriting.
Yes.
As against brainstorming. What is that?
Well, brainwriting, I watched a speaker, and I forget her name, but I have it in the book, talk about brainwriting. And it's, if you have people that maybe are afraid to speak up and give ideas, they may have valuable feedback. So you have them kind of the same thing. You have them write their ideas on paper, send it to the next person. They don't put their names on it or anything. That person can take that idea and add something to it or not, any other ideas. In the meantime, you just keep moving each person's paper around. And it's, instead of speaking it, instead of saying, how about this, they write it.
Wow. So for people that are shy, or they just think the ideas can be really bad and somebody make fun of them, they can just write it out. And sometimes you can even make the idea anonymous so that you don't know who's writing it.
It is anonymous. Yes.
Of course.
It is. I mean, people are told if you want to put your name on it, you can, but the whole idea of brainwriting instead of brainstorming out loud is to make people feel very comfortable.
Good. So that it doesn't get weird in the corridor after that, because people start looking at the other coworker differently. You don't know who write what. So you don't have to look at anybody anyhow. That's good.
It's almost like a confidential survey, right? Except you're writing your idea and passing it.
Wow, interesting.
Right.
One of the things that I also find interesting from the conversation is the different ways that people generate ideas outside of the group. All right. What are the ways and times you come up with ideas as a person? And for other people that you've met, when do they really get into that flow of generating ideas?
Well, very often, especially if you get stuck, the experts like Dr. Ron Friedman, he did some work on that, and I think I wrote his some of his ideas in the book. And that's, just get away from it. Get completely away from it. Take a class. When you take a shower, there's something about being in the shower that helps you generate ideas. But the point is to you can't stay so focused on it, you kind of get stuck. So just get away from it. Some people will have activities for their employees. Go, they'll play a softball game or something. And when they come back, they're still thinking, even though they
Yes.
don't know it, they're still thinking.
Yes. And you also mentioned that another person wrote a book about science-based reasons why shows actually help people to generate ideas. Do you have any
Science-based idea generating, you mean?
Yes. So when people take showers, right? They're in the showers.
Yeah.
There are people have come up with some reasons why people generate more ideas in the shower than.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's Dr. Friedman that wrote that. I don't remember why. I just remember thinking, wow, that's so true. Because even taking a walking the dog, you think you're not thinking about it, and you just all of a sudden come up. Did you ever just all of a sudden come up with, here it is, here's the idea? It's because you've removed yourself, I think, from the situation. I know it worked. I'm not a scientist, but I've studied a lot of work, and I've read it numerous times.
Wow, interesting. Just now, you mentioned feedback. Feedback is very important, even in generating ideas. You want to feedback from the other person, and it feels that sometimes getting feedback or giving feedback can be very tricky and sometimes difficult, because you can get into emotions of people. Maybe you're telling them they're not doing something well, and it doesn't come right to them. It doesn't sound right. So what is the best way to get feedback in an organization without hurting anybody's feelings and things like that?
A good way to give feedback without hurting feelings?
Yes.
That's a very good question. The whole key to that is to do it with the heart and help, right? This feedback isn't to hurt anybody. If I don't give an employee feedback that needs that feedback to get better, that employee is going to fail. And I know we all like to get good information. That's great to get complimented, and we need to do that. And in fact, that's one of the keys. Make sure it's not all about the bad stuff, right?
Yes.
If you continually give good feedback and then you have an issue, and I bring somebody in the office and I say, John, I love you. I've talked to you about X, Y, and Z. There's one issue we really need to work on. And let's talk about this together so we can figure out how to help you get better with it. That's a lot better, right, than beating them up.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So I think that's why there's various organizations or people that have recommended the sandwich method, in which case you say something good, bad, then good, so that the bad is just in between. You just wrap it up like a nice sausage.
Right.
Well packed.
Right.
That's something that I also know people do. So still talking about feedback, one of the things that companies do is to get feedback from professionals. And these are experts that give advice to various companies. And sometimes these companies don't take advice. And you wrote a couple of them in your book. Why do you think companies know better, but they decide to just ignore the experts' advice?
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple things. Sometimes the expert's not right, right? I mean, all I could do is give my opinion based on my history and my education and the experiences that I know. But often when people don't take the advice, it's because they're afraid. They don't know if it's going to work. They're afraid to take that next step, especially if it's a big decision. Some people just think they know it all. They know better. And I think, well, why did you hire me? Now, first of all, I don't think that people should just take an expert's opinion without thinking through it. because it's their decision, it's their company. But I can always tell the people who just don't want to hear that they're doing something that can be done a little differently. So each person has their own issues, I think.
Wow,
You know?
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, we could mention a couple of that in your book, Win. Right. In your book, Win, you mentioned WinX. Yeah,
WinX.
WinX. In your book, you talked about the Howard story. The Howard story. And the Howard story, the property manager story that involved terminating Jim's appointment and how the client reacted to that.
Yes. True story.
What do you think about that story?
Well, I think the reason I put it in the book is to show that, you know, first of all, the manager who made the decision to terminate the property manager, you assumed he knew what the problem was. He assumed that the client was going to cancel their account, which was totally wrong. He made a decision that wasn't even accurate. He made an assumption that wasn't accurate. And then he took the next step and made the final decision before he even looked into it, until, you know, he didn't go into a process because of what? Because of fear. Mm-hmm. Fear and anger, two emotions. So I put that story in there to show that, number one, you better know what the issue is. And number two, take a breath, stand back, and then do your own evaluation. Because even if the client was going to terminate the contract, let's say he was right, that there still could have been other reasons, which they were. Mm-hmm. There were problems, but it didn't have to do with his manager. So.
Good. Thank you. Another case that I also find interesting is the NASA case. Mm. And my question there, what is the importance of making ethical decisions and sticking to them, because that's what the data is saying?
Yeah, I mean, look at what happened, right? The employee was right. They made emotional decisions to get things done because of it was unethical. But maybe in their head they thought it would, you know, everything would be okay. But it's so important to really know what your morals are and how important doing the right thing is. That's hard sometimes for these managers, these leaders making huge decisions. And that was a huge decision. It should have been easy. They should have stopped that from going up. But it's not as easy as we say it is, right? You have to put yourself in his shoes. I would hope that I would have not done things the way they did it.
Yes.
But, you know, there's some powerful decisions that can kill you if you make the wrong one.
Yes.
So I think that if you do the ethical thing, even though you may lose in the beginning, it's the bigger win.
Yes.
And that's what I go after, is the bigger win.
Wow. And I know that you also mentioned intuition, and that's a situation whereby you actually have to make a decision based on, you don't have much time to think. You just have to use the experience that you have in the past to make a decision. This is not one of those, because this kind of decision involved life. It has to be intentional. You have to think through the whole process before you do that. Thank you for saying that. That's very important. The other case that I also find interesting is the Ford case. The cost of making a profit versus the cost of protecting the human life.
And that was intentional. I mean, that wasn't even a decision that you have to make in a day. They knew there were problems. So, I mean, I don't even know what to say about that. It was a horrible situation. People burned to death. I just can't imagine. I can't imagine making that kind of, and again, it's easier for us to say because we're not in those roles, but look at the big picture. You know, look at the end result. Look how it hurt them in the long run.
Yes. Yeah. Even though the family of people that are impacted, they still come and sue and get some money, the money they get is not compared to the profit that they make. So they don't care if they have to part with some money. That's why they keep going.
That's how they looked at it.
Yeah.
They didn't look at the lives and the families that were destroyed by that. They looked at, well, okay, we'll have to pay some money. Bad situations.
Wow.
Yeah.
Another case that I also find interesting is the J.K. Rowling story.
Oh, yeah.
The thrift publisher saw something in J.K. Rowling, and that's why we have the Harry Potter that people cannot just stop reading for some reason.
I
That I
know.
don't understand.
I know.
But the previous 11 publishers did not see this. Why? I mean, is this a once in a million situation, or something that is common whereby it seems that everybody's not seeing something, but somebody comes from nowhere, just sees something so clearly, and they go for it?
Yeah, that one's a little bit different than the rest of the stories because I don't know how much emotion was in that or not. You know, sometimes we just don't make the right decision. Sometimes there are a lot of famous people and books that were written by people that were turned down by many others. I think the point in this is, you know, look at what you're doing and do the best research you can. And sometimes you're going to win and sometimes you're not. And those other publishers, I'm sure, were beating themselves up to this day.
Yes.
They should call me, right?
Yeah, they should have called you to talk about
My book.
the Winx method, right? They should have.
I'm sure that call's coming. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how we started today. That problem solving is something that should have been taught in schools. For some reasons, we're not taught, still not been taught in school today. That's why reading a book like this and having conversation like this is very important, because
You know,
nobody's going to
think about it. Think about the same business. Some do extremely well and some fail, right? In the same town for the same company, and some employees work for the same employer, the same boss, and some do exceedingly well, get promoted, and some fail. Every decision we make impacts us. And it's either going to take us in the right direction or the wrong direction. Every major decision. So that's why decision making is, I don't care what your job title is. I don't care what your boss says your job is. The problem solvers, the people, you are expected to eliminate problems or at least reduce them and solve them. That's your biggest role, no matter what your job, if you think about it.
Wow, interesting. And that's why you stated in the book, your book, Winx, that leaders are supposed to be problem solvers. And
Right.
even if you find yourself not too good with solving problems, then you have to hire people that can solve problems, that can help you see the things that you're not seeing,
Right.
and be able to listen to them and welcome their feedback,
Yes.
even though it may mean that they appear smarter than you. And the question is, how many managers and bosses can take that, whereby you have an employee that's always talking and it feels that they know better? How many
Well,
people can
I think
say
there's a difference between a know-it-all,
mm-hmm,
right? Somebody who thinks they know better and talks too much.
mm-hmm.
Somebody who really has some credible experiences that you should tap into. And even new employees can be a great source because they're not looking at everything the same with the same funnel vision that you're looking at. So I always look for people smarter than me to work for me. If they're not smarter than me, I don't know why I need them.
Yes.
Right. And all they're going to do is lift me up. That's why I did so well in when I was in leadership, because I had great people. You can't do it all yourself.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. One of the cases that I also find very interesting is the Hershey chocolate.
Yeah.
situation. How and why was Hershey able to recover, and why are some companies still not able to recover from such situation?
Well, I think, if you already have a great brand, you can, we will make mistakes and it's okay. And we can make big mistakes.
Yes.
But if you are good at what you do, you will it's another problem to solve. So if you look at it, then you can recover. I mean, in most cases you can. Hershey's didn't kill anybody in a car or anything like
Yes.
that, right? So I think it's really tenacity and saying, okay, I should have done that. I did this. Move on. Move on.
Yes. And I think that your book, Winex, you're not promising people that they will always do the right thing or always achieve success. It's just reducing the amount of failures that people experience.
Correct.
That should be very clear, so that people don't think this is a magic pill. It's not a magic pill. This is not voodoo, right?
That's right. Just, I don't have any secret juju, right? But it is a good process that if you follow the process, you are more likely to make good and big win decisions than not.
Good. One of the cases that I also find very interesting is the Blockbuster video and Netflix.
Yeah.
Because I can still remember 2015, thereabout, when I still want to watch video, I still go and borrow CD from Publix. I think Publix has one of those outside, and you can, but I barely do that anymore now.
I know.
So that's a practical example. What do you have to say about that case?
Well, I think that, they thought that they had the hold, if we don't realize that things are moving and changing, if we don't stay up with modern times, we're going to be left behind. And that's what happened with them. I used to love going to Blockbuster stores and looking around. My husband and I and my son used to go every Sunday or weekend, Friday night, go to church, and then we'd go to Blockbuster. It was kind of a routine. But, somebody came into that field and wanted them to partner with them, and they didn't want to share their ideas. And, I can understand that. I can understand it. But again, if you're not looking at what's coming and you're only looking at today, pretty soon you'll be yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. That's my thought on it.
Yeah, so it's for any business, they have to actually be researching and looking forward as to how trends are changing. If you have to stop producing something, you have to stop producing immediately, or you might lose money if you produce something that nobody needs for some reason.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you have to do your research and your market research, and I don't produce products. Well, I guess a book is a product, but I know people need problem solving. There's not even a question in my mind, because no matter what your position is, you have problems. We all do. It's how we solve them.
That's true. Another case that I find interesting is the danger of the single story.
That's the one that I get the most comments from, that it changed people.
Yes.
I mean, it really changes you when you actually think, wow, who am I looking at? Or who am I listening to? Why? And am I listening to the other side? Am I considering that there might be more to this story than what I'm hearing?
Wow, interesting. It's all, I think you tied that to the fact that when people hear something, they tend to stick to the first thing that they hear, and it feels that when you're trying to convince them to believe something different, it's more difficult.
It is, and that's just human nature. Did you read the part about the police officer that told me, a retired police officer?
Yes.
Yeah, he said, try to be the first one to report if something happens, because it's human nature that we tend to believe more the first story. So if we grow up in a, if you're political, and you grow up in a household that's conservative, you're going to believe the conservative side. If you grow up in a house that's liberal, you're going to believe the liberal side, unless you make yourself. Like, I have to watch both conservative and liberal because I know I'm not getting the full story. I'll get one piece from one station or one piece from the other. Drives my husband crazy. But I just don't think you have all the information. And even listening to both sides, you don't have. I can't wait for this debate, by the way, coming up.
I'm looking forward to it too.
Yeah.
So that's why there's an African proverb that says that an elderly person that makes a decision based on hearing just one side of the story is a wicked person.
Oh,
because,
wicked. Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
it's not a good person. Yeah. That's why when you hear something, you always try to hear the other side of it before you make a decision, or else the decision you make is gonna almost feel that you're treating one group better than the other.
Right. And you're ill-informed because you don't have all the information.
Yes.
And excuse me, even when you get the information, a lot of times you have to peel that onion back. Can you explain that a little bit more? Can you help me understand this? Well, how does this connect to this? And you have to watch how you do, because some people take it offensively, like you're questioning them on their intelligence, but it's not that at all. It's just trying to understand.
Yes, that's true. That's very true.
Yeah.
One of the cases that you mentioned again is the Emily story, whereby she find it difficult to get along with a boss that treated her badly. But instead of treating it and having a conversation, she just started throwing the company under the bus, and she gets closer to the client and say bad things about the company. I think that happened a lot in America. I don't know with what I've seen, in which case somebody is not happy, they just start saying things and doing things that they're not supposed to do.
Right.
What would you recommend in that kind of situation?
Well, I think, did you ever hear the Maya Angelou? I think it was Maya Angelou that says people do the best with what they know, and when they know more, they do better.
Yes.
Right. So she felt she was a loyal employee and that her boss was wrong and she was doing the right thing. She wasn't a loyal employee. Her boss was wrong, but she didn't handle it well at all. So it's really having conversations and teaching them problem-solving skills and making sure that they take care of the situation in a professional way.
Yes. Good. It's always good to do that. One of the applications that I think is very important is when you consult, because you also do consulting on the side,
Yes.
right?
Right.
So if a company that's really big approaches you and say, well, we are thinking about buying a smaller company, and we don't have much decision, we want to quickly move along, we want to know whether it's a good decision or not, how would you advise the company? What would you tell them to do?
I would refer them to somebody else because that's not my expertise. Now, I could look at the culture of the company that they want to buy. I could look at the practices and processes and advise them on how to make it better. But as far as buying companies, I would refer them out.
Yes. Okay. So they cannot use the Winx method for that.
They can use the WinX method for general problem solving, but it's in general, WinX is for solving people problems, employees, customers, how we handle situations, but not for like buying another company or decisions like that.
So that's too specific. All right, that's what you're saying.
Right. It's to win with the problem solving model, to win with customers, employees, and your bottom line. That's what it's focused on. Good.
Thank you so much for clarifying that, because I know a lot of people do that, especially voucher companies they just become so big and they're ready to swallow another smaller company, and that's how they become bigger and things like that. So that's something to think about.
Yeah, they want an expert in that field.
Yes.
Right.
One of the things you also mentioned in the book, Winx, is the fact that when you have a client and you need to change your client, you recommended getting rid, right, of the old client, and before getting a new client, of what's the method, what's the best thing to do?
Are you saying if the client is a problem, or?
Yeah, it's a problem. Yes, it's a problem. If the client is a problem, how do you quickly move from having the problematic client to getting a new client? How long can you stay with the old client that is giving you a problem while trying to get a new client?
Well, I have multiple clients, so one doesn't affect the other. However,
Okay.
if I have a problem client that's sucking up so much of my time that I can't spend my time with my other clients or my employees, then I've got to do something about that, right? So first, again, if I have a problem client, I want to look at what's the real problem. What's the root cause of that problem? But if they truly are a problem client, then I've got to get rid of the client. I mean, and I have fired myself from clients.
Oh, you fired yourself from clients?
I do. No, I do. Like, for example, I have a large client, and the CEO has asked me to work with a couple other people that work for her, and they were not. One of them was doing great. The other one just wasn't doing anything. And I said, look, I'm firing myself from this client because I can't. If they don't do their work, I can't help them. And if I can't help them, I'm going to lose. I'm going to look bad. You're going to spend money on me that's not worth it. So, this is a problem person for you. I don't think they're worth saving because they won't do anything about it. And I don't want to take your money anymore.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Still talking about problem solving and also generating ideas. Ideas are very good to generate, but then it's also important to know that it's not always about producing something new services. It could be improving what you have already. One of the observations that I have in environment is the convenience market in America, in which case people are always open to a new, easier, and also faster way of doing things. We want to quickly cook our food, and you don't want to cook food for for 30 minutes. If you can get somebody to give you the same food to cook for 5 minutes, and even if it means paying more money, a lot of people are open to that in American setting, so to say. So do you feel such market is underexploited, or what do you think about that?
Are you talking about like fast food?
Yeah, fast food, or just faster way of doing things generally.
I think faster way of doing things is always good, as long as the quality's there. I don't ever sacrifice anything for quality. The thing that I look for is how could we make this bigger, more exciting, better? How could we make a difference for our customers that's still high value? Now, a lot of people will take lower value for less money, right?
Yes.
I happen to think that you could provide high value service no matter how much you charge. Because a lot of it isn't about the product, it's about the service. And if you help your people provide that very high value service, then regardless of what your product is or how your building looks, you're probably going to do well.
Wow. So the value is the most important thing. People, you think people are always going to be willing to pay for the value?
Well, some aren't. I mean, you have some some people that won't pay for value, but those aren't. You have to decide, are those my clients? And if they are, then fine. But the question is, what do you want? Because there are people that make a lot of money on low paid, there's those dollar stores and a lot of places where you can get things with less expense. You know, as the business owner, you have to decide who do you want. It's like I describe it like this. If I'm looking at buying a hotel,
Mm-hmm.
I could buy a low cost hotel where you can go in there for $30 a night, or a Ritz-Carlton. They're both hotels. They both have beds, right?
Yes.
One, when you go in their bed, feels like you're sleeping in butter. It feels so good. The other one, maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
There are customers for both of those. So which one do you want to be? And whichever one you are, my whole position is be great at it. Still provide that white glove service, even if you're a Red Roof Inn or whatever it is. So be the best of that industry.
Good,
Whichever
good.
one you choose.
Yes, I think I get what you mean. So there's always people that are always going to want to play for lesser, pay lesser amount regardless of the value.
Right.
So if you're providing very high value, those are not your clients. You go for people who actually want to pay more for higher value.
Right. So if I say I want the Ritz-Carlton, that's the one I want. I'm going to pay more, but I'm going to get more, right? Because those are clients that have the money to pay.
Good, good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, there are customers on both sides. You have to decide which side you want, and then how to be the best at what you do.
Good. So you don't recommend people being on both sides. Just pick one side and stay at that side.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if it's some people may have, I've never researched that. I think, again, it's all discretion and it's research. And it's talking to people who have a different skill set than I do about looking at different businesses, how well are they doing? I would just make sure that you do the right research and get with the right person. I could, look for somebody. If somebody was looking, in fact, I know somebody I could refer to if they were looking to buy a business.
Good, good. So references is also
right.
It's also very important to refer somebody.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you don't, I know some people that will take your money no matter what you ask them for and give you bad advice. I will stay in my lane.
Good, good. That's very good.
Yeah.
One of the things you mentioned in the book, Winex, is the Oprah effect that has to do with also services like this. What is that about?
Well, that's about, let's say you want Oprah to recommend you, and you're on Oprah's show. You remember the Oprah show? Do you remember that show? Right. And then all of a sudden you have more business than you can handle.
Yes.
So you're not prepared for it. So it's really, making sure that you're ready to take on the type of business you would get, because otherwise you could fail and fail big.
Wow.
That's bottom line. That's what that's about.
Wow, that's very powerful to think ahead and make sure that we're not wasting our time with that kind of situation. So now let's go into one of the suggestions you mentioned in the book about working together. You talk about the cohesiveness of a group and also the psychological effect or psychological safety of the book. And it seems that if care is not taken, they can have a negative effect on one another. Is that I'm not sure that's something people are really aware of, because in the book you talk about the fact that, well, cohesiveness means working together, but then if you have to keep people from working together and they're not able to express themselves or not able to do things the way they're supposed to do it, then you're compromising their psychological safety.
Well, I'm not sure what piece of the book you're referring to, but there are some people that will never want to get involved in problem solving. And that's like putting a square peg in a round hole, right?
Yes.
What I suggest, though, is just to have a conversation with people and say, can you just give me your opinion? Do you have an opinion? And if you have an opinion, do you have a suggestion? So if you say, I don't like, well, I don't like the way we clock in, if we
Yes.
do that. Okay, I agree with you. What are the remedies? Do you have any suggestions we should look at?
Mm. Wow. Wow. Well, suggestions are very important.
Mhm.
And you also said in your book about having people that think differently, diversity of thoughts in
Right.
decision making. And
Right.
in a world whereby we still struggle with diversity, inclusion, and all this kind of thing, how can you encourage a manager or a boss that, well, if they don't get into the flow of this diversity thing, they might be losing some creativity? And if a manager is saying that, well, I don't need much training, the know-it-all manager, how can you convince such people that, well, they're actually missing a lot by not including?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's a challenging situation. But again, I think it's people do the best with what they know, and when they know more, they do better, right? So it's tunnel vision. I always say this: if you bring everybody on your team that is just like you, who thinks like you, who makes decisions like you will never grow. So how can we look at a different side of the story? How can we look at different people's positions? And you don't have to use people's feedback. My suggestion is just get it and understand it. Make sure that you understand why they're making the recommendation. If you have questions about it, seek first to understand and then to be understood. Do you remember 7 habits of highly effective people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So seek to understand, and then you make your own decision. And if I can get people just to listen to other people and seek to understand without the fear of, well, I don't like that decision. It's okay not to like it. It's okay not to use it. All I'm asking you to do is to listen and understand. That's when they start seeing some other perspectives. And that's been very helpful for me with people like that.
Wow, interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
We are moving closer to the end. This is my last question, getting a little bit more personal. You stated in your book, Winex, that you met your husband on Match.com.
I did.
What was the experience like, and did you use the Winex method to make a decision?
Well, I think what did I talk about in there about that? I think that it was, when you first meet somebody, it's based on physical and, your conversations and stuff like that. I've met other people on Match.com and it didn't work out. So I think problem solving is problem solving, and idea generation is idea generation, and just don't make emotional decisions
Mm-hmm.
as far as moving. I mean, I met my ex-fiance on Match.com, and it didn't work out.
But you still went back to the same Match.com.
Actually, this one was perfect Match.com.
Okay.
But that's not the point. The point was, I think I thought I was going back on the same one, but I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think the whole point is make sure you know what you want. Like with my ex, the problem I thought was him because he was more controlling than I was used to, and just not I didn't want to quit my job and stay home and I don't know, cook or whatever I don't know what he wanted me to do. And I blamed him for me wanting out, but the truth was it wasn't him and it wasn't me. He was the wrong person for me.
Yes.
So the root cause of the problem of the poor relationship, and by the way, we're still friends,
Mm-hmm.
was that, if I would have kept thinking it was all about him, I may have gotten in the same problem again.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So it's looking at your experience and saying, what was wrong with this experience? And how can I shift it so it's not like that in the next relationship?
Wow, excellent. I hope people can learn from that. People that are in that kind of space to learn and just know that, well, it has to be compatible, right? And certain things that is really important to you, matching of values, it's very important.
Right.
So
And not even just values, but like he has somebody now in his life that matches his personality and all that, and values and everything. So, right.
good, good. Thank you so much. Now we are coming close to the end. Is there anything you want to say to our audience about your new book that you mentioned?
Oh,
You want to
yes.
show us?
So the new book, so the first book was for employers and leaders, leadership teams. My new book is WinX for Employees. This is what it looks like. Looks like the same thing, but a different color, and it says WinX for Employees.
Very, very
Yep.
different from that.
Yep. So my hope is that organizations will have their teams review the books. The employees one is really generated for employee issues and the leadership, and then come up with problem solving together so that they all win exponentially.
Wow, excellent.
Finding the book, WinX for Employees is easy to find. The first one's a little, it looks like Winx, WINX. There's no space in it. So you'll have the link to put in and you could find my books on my website as well, paronegroup.com.
Good. I'll put a link in the video. Any last thoughts for our viewers? Any last thoughts you want to say?
We are our decisions. Every decision we make or action we take impacts us and others. So just, learn decision making, share what you learned here today with other people. And if I can help, reach out. It's been an honor.
Good, good. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Irma Parone, it was nice having this conversation with you. I've learned a lot from the book, WinX. I recommend you read this if you want to learn more about problem solving. It's really good. Thank you for being here on this episode of Solution Illuminators Series podcast. I'm looking forward to hearing more about your progress and your success, and really find it really exciting to have this opportunity to have conversation with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.